We're on Brisbane's South Bank, where a huge security operation has its focus for the G20 meeting this week. More than 6,000 police and extra military and security have been drafted in for the operation. But civil liberties groups are concerned that traditional civil rights around protests have been eroded with new laws drafted for this meeting. But those concerns are dwarfed by the radical changes in Queensland since the Liberal National Party state government took office in a landslide in 2012. Civil liberties were the prime casualties of the government's law and order agenda. And public enemy number one was the outlaw motorcycle gangs, or the bikies.
"12 months ago, the Queensland Government of Australia brought in a variety of laws aimed at particularly motorcycle clubs. I've been a member of a motorcycle club for 33 years. Basically, every law they've brought in is affecting me or my family in some way. It's looking like the government can just put me out of business with the stroke of a pen with no real justification. I've never had a criminal record. I've tattooed all walks of life, you know, everyone from rock stars, people who've been in movies. I've tattooed the Archbishop of Brisbane. The reason for these laws, they're saying, is we're laundering money through our studios and we're selling steroids. You know, I've never sold drugs, and you know, like, I do my bookwork every year. It goes to the tax department. They're happy with it. I think if we were laundering money, it'll be pretty easy to see, I think.
What do you face if the tattooing laws that they've brought in are upheld?
If they're upheld and I am deemed a criminal, I'll be refused my licence. I won't be able to operate a studio anymore that supports 7 families.
We've asked to speak to 4 ministers today, including the Attorney General. None of them were available. But in Queensland, the government has a powerful ally. Brisbane, the capital, is virtually a one-newspaper town. This is the Courier Mail, where I used to work.
I think what was proposed by the state government at first was seen to be heavy-handed because it went very close to impinging on people's civil liberties. People did think they were excessive. But then I think they saw that slowly but surely these bikie gangs were responsible for some monstrous crimes in the community. There were people being murdered, there was extortion, there was identity theft, there was fraud on grand scale.
Shots were fired into a tattoo shop.
We saw great violence. We saw a woman even shot as she was going about her business shopping.
As well as civil liberties, the other big issue has been widespread public service cuts, affecting everyone from environmental scientists to health workers.
What we've seen on the LNP government over the last 2 years has been an extraordinary attack on public sector services, which has been characterised by a process of mass job cuts, an attack on working conditions for public sector workers, and a major program of privatisation, which is only halfway through, which has seen about 20,000 public sector jobs go out of a total employment of 200,000 public sector workers in Queensland.
Yeah, it's very sad that we see HIV rising, syphilis rising, gonorrhoea rising, chlamydia rising, and yet the government acted to chop the funding of Biala, who had 44 staff, and they chopped them down to 11, and so they got rid of the sexual health testing clinic and the transgender clinic and only kept the HIV specific referred service. I was on the HIV advisory committee, but sadly they weren't willing to accept agenda items onto that committee, and I put agenda items on, but they weren't accepted, and so I realised that they didn't actually want advice, they just wanted some credibility. I wanted to work together to say, let's work government and community together, because that's the way that we actually get best outcomes, but that agenda was not accepted as an agenda item, and they'd already sent off the first advertisement to be produced without us as a committee having a chance to see it or review it.
There is a perception, isn't there, that the government is quite combative.
The snivelling left in the media has tried to create that impression, especially with left-wing publications like The Guardian and the ABC. They've added 1,000 new police, front line. They've added hundreds of new nurses, front line. There were people offered voluntary redundancies, and a lot of people took them, including friends of mine who were happy to do so. At the end of the day, there were less than 100 people who we could describe as being sacked.
When they have attitudes of we'll just sack all the doctors if they don't sign the contracts. That's not fostering, valuing people. They've made a guideline that if you get 50% of your funding from the government, then you're not allowed to lobby for law change at a state or federal level. And I'm saying, what are you scared of?
I think Queensland politics is very different to the rest of Australia in that we're a unicameral system. We don't have an upper house of any sort, which means any government has extraordinary amounts of power.
We've come to meet Sally Couther and her partner Fred Palmer, also known as Crow, who face a possible 6 months in jail for walking together into a pub. They, along with their friend, were arrested under Queensland's anti-association laws.
I was arrested for being on a licensed premises with a prohibited item, being a vest, and for being classed as a participant in a motorcycle, like a motorcycle gang. We went to the Daybra Hotel with Crow's brother. We had 2 beers, they served us, not a problem. They didn't mind us being there, they didn't mind that we had vests on. I've never ever been in that situation of police around before because I've got no criminal record. There were just, what was there, about
10.
Over 10 police officers with bulletproof vests on.
This is a month later since we went to the Daybra pub.
We spent 6 days, 6 nights in jail.
And then I went to Arthur from there. I spent another week.
And what's happened to your and Ant's motorcycles?
They're both in police lockup. They took them as evidence.
It's all right for you people to sit in your leafy suburbs of inner city Brisbane and where there are no bikies and to ponder the great moral questions about whether or not people's liberties have been hurt. But what about the liberties of people to walk around the street?
So we've seen a glimpse of how a government that came to power in a popular landslide went on to divide the community with its classically Queensland winner-takes-all approach to politics. It's a reminder, as world leaders meet here to discuss global problems at the G20 meeting, that when self-interest and partisan considerations prevail, there are always those that lose out.